So I couldn't believe it this morning when I saw the front page of the Sun newspaper, a newspaper, by the way, that I used to be the executive editor of, declare Britain is broken and include within its pages what seemed to be a near endorsement of Reform UK and Nigel Farage at the local elections. I found this particularly galling, particularly frustrating, particularly infuriating, actually, because I believe the Sun's management and editorial team desperately let down their readers, their good working class stock, by endorsing Keir Starmer officially just 9 months ago. Because let me tell you, it would have been far more powerful for the Sun to endorse Reform UK and Nigel Farage at the last election. No kidding that the disastrous policy platform that Labour put forward, especially putting the accelerator down on nut zero, was going to destroy the country. But Nigel has embraced this near endorsement. He's held up the Sun's Inside article describing him as a nightmare for Keir Starmer today. And of course, Liam Halligan, this polling is dire for Labour. It shows that just 9 months in, the vast majority of Brits feel like we are going in a disastrous direction. And of course, you are primarily known as one of the best economic brains in the country. And I would argue that a lot of this is down to the pocketbook, right? Is down to the fact that Brits feel ourselves getting poorer at the same time as we see public services like the bin strike in Birmingham go down the drain.
You know, Dan, there have been famous Sun headlines throughout the years, and even in today's world where newspapers are a lot less important, a lot less widely read, certainly in print form, than when we were younger. When the Sun really goes for it with a front page, it can still move the needle. It can still pack a punch. I think back to the Sun headline of the late 1970s, "Crisis, what crisis?" Words that the Sun then put in the mouth of outgoing Labour Prime Minister Jim Callaghan. I think back to the Sun headline before the 1992 general election: "Will the last person to leave Britain please turn off the lights?" When it looked as if Neil Kinnock was going to win. And I think this Broken Britain headline, it's so well timed and there's such sharp journalism behind it that I do think it could enter that pantheon of kind of historic Sun front pages that really mark a kind of inflection point, a sort of important milestone in terms of British political life. Why do I say that? Look at the polling inside. The polling inside that's driven the headline is that whereas Reform were on, they just after the general election, of course, they won 14% of the vote in the general election. Just after the general election, Reform went to 18%. They're now on 30%. Starmer, he got his post-election bounce. He won 33%. He went up to 37% of the polls. He's now on 28%. So he's behind Farage, and the Tories are on like 26, 27. Nigel Farage, the mainstream media, of which I guess I'm still just about part, doesn't like to admit it. But if you look at the likes of Betfair and other political betting sites, and the betting markets, these aren't odds, as your very informed readers, listeners will know. These aren't odds that are set by the house. These are odds that reflect the weight of money in the market, a very different form of odds. It's like a betting market, not like a bookmaker's. For many months now, Betfair and others have had Farage as the most likely next Prime Minister, which is really astonishing. And yet still so many at Westminster think they can ignore him. That's the bubble that they're in. So I actually think, the Sun better than I do. I have a good relationship with the Sun. I write for the Sun from time to time, and I always read the Sun. I still think it's capable of really important journalism. I still think the quality of tabloid journalism in this country is way above any other country. You look at the depths of political analysis and even economic and business analysis you get in our tabloid newspapers, way above the quality of other countries. I'm not being sarcastic at all. It just is. And this Sun political analysis, I don't think this would have happened, Dan, without News International at the very highest level sanctioning this, right? I don't think this would have happened. Maybe the very top people at News International took their eye off the ball when Starmer was endorsed, or it was so obvious that he was going to win that the Sun doesn't want to be seen to back a losing horse. But I do think this is an important move by the Sun. It'll be very interesting to see if they firm it up. It'll be very interesting to see if the likes of Rupert Lowe do join the Conservatives, and that's something that is certainly being rumoured. My WhatsApp message groups are certainly talking about it, and people are on those message groups who are in a position to know. It'll be interesting to see how the Sun responds to that. The Sun doesn't have the double-digit millions numbers of readers that it used to have, but it still has an awful lot of political and cultural power. And this is a major feather in Nigel Farage's cap that ahead of the local elections, in which Reform are likely to do pretty well, even though the local elections have been sort of gerrymandered to some extent, so Reform doesn't get as much of a crack of the whip as it otherwise would, and indeed ahead of Welsh Senate elections next year. If the Sun is going to carry on turning the screw on Starmer and the Tories by getting closer and closer to Reform, that will have a major impact. And the Sun would not do that unless they thought Farage had a really good chance of winning.
Because you're totally right.
That's what the Sun does, right? And I'm not being cynical at all. I've watched this newspaper since I was a paper boy. I got into journalism because I was a paper boy and I used to read the papers.
Me too.
And since I was a kid, I've watched the Sun very, very closely. And I've always, I'm mainly known, I guess, as a sort of nerdy economic broadsheet bloke. I'm really a tabloid journalist at heart. I just like really reveling in complexity. So I've got a lot of respect for the Sun, and I think this is the first sign that the Sun believes those betting markets and believes, I'm astonished we're saying this, but I'm saying it because I think it's true, believes that Reform is in with a fighting chance, if not of winning outright, then certainly holding the balance of power at the next general election.
And I think you're totally right.
Mainstream media people will think I'm insane for saying that, think I'm morally a reprobate for saying that. I'm saying that because I'm an analyst.
But first, I never recommend anything unless I truly believe in it. And today I've got something that is really game-changing for you. Have you ever stopped to think about how crucial comfort is, especially down there? Well, let me tell you, today's Outspoken is proudly sponsored by Sheath Underwear, the revolutionary brand shaking up men's comfort across the globe. And here's what makes it even better. Sheath was founded by a US Army veteran, Robert Patton, while he was serving in Iraq back in 2007. So that's right, this isn't just any underwear brand. It was designed for the toughest conditions imaginable. Patton was battling relentless heat and discomfort in full combat gear, and he thought there has to be a better way. So he created it. And let's be honest, traditional underwear doesn't just cut it anymore. Sheath's innovative dual pouch design ensures your comfort all day long, keeping things separate, cool, and fresh. Imagine your essentials being comfortably cradled away from unwanted friction and heat. Trust me, it is genuinely transformative. Now, I've personally tested Sheath. I wear them at the gym, on long days at work, even just relaxing at home. I'm telling you, once you've experienced Sheath, there is simply no turning back. These underwear are stylish, they're supported, and they're really set up to deliver unmatched comfort. I guess I describe it when I'm talking to my mates like upgrading from economy to first class, but for your underwear. And right now I'm offering you an exclusive 20% discount at www.sheath.com. Sheath is spelled SHEATH. So yes, that's 20% off your entire order when you use my special promo code Outspoken at checkout. So what are you waiting for? Sheath is the perfect present, by the way, if you're looking for your husband, your boyfriend, your son, your brother, your hard to buy for best mate. But here's the thing, ladies. On the website, you will see, look at that, There are female versions available too, so you can also buy for yourself. I should tell you as well, and you can see some of them in action here. Sheath, the first official underwear of the UFC. So click the link below or visit sheath.com, enter Outspoken at checkout. Make sure you remember to do that for your 20% discount. And then you can thank me later when you're feeling comfortable, confident, and ready to tackle anything your day throws at you. Sheath underwear, redefining comfort one pair at a time. But now, back to the show. But I guess where my disappointment comes in, right, is that Rupert Murdoch himself is a personal fan of Nigel Farage. He would regularly go for dinner with Nigel up until very recently.
Yeah.
And look, I guess for me, Liam, I can't just forgive that endorsement of Labour just like that, because we're now living through the pain of a Labour government. And
Dan, you've
that's going to be so
operated
painful for Sun readers.
You've operated at newspapers at the highest level, right? You've been in the room when major decisions are made. There was nothing in it for the Sun when an incoming Labour government was about to take office in Downing Street. The Sun News International, they have all kinds of regulatory issues they got to deal with. Yeah, they've got to have a relationship with the government of the day, that it isn't just sort of, a standoff, pistols, at dawn, daggers drawn. It was inevitable that the Sun was going to back Starmer, because it was inevitable that Starmer was going to win. That's just grown-up politics. At the moment, nothing was in the balance, Dan. There was nothing in it for the Sun to sort of die on that hill and just really annoy the government.
Well, apart from that, now, Liam, they could
for the next
say,
6 months, but
now,
but now there is genuine flux in British politics. No one knows how it's going to go. No one knows how it's going to go.
No.
Now,
we are in.
We all know that there
times.
needs to be some kind of, if the right is going to beat Labour, if the right isn't going to disgrace itself in front of a big slug of the population who's already sick of Labour, if the right isn't going to look mad in front of the rest of the world, if Labour manages to come through, even though it's annoying so many people, then it has to unite in some way. There has to be some kind of deal done on the right of British politics that doesn't look like a stitch up, but looks as if there's some kind of thought being given to the sum of the greater good rather than the individual ambition. You're already seeing signs of this, just hints from the leader of the opposition herself. Kemi is starting to say things like this at the local level ahead of the local elections. And maybe the Sun wants to get in on that act. Maybe the Sun wants to be part of that. And you start by endorsing or making clear that you take Farage seriously as the major political player that he is.
Yeah, the funny thing is I know Sun readers, and I know Sun readers will have absolutely no concerns about the Sun getting closer to Nigel Farage. Did they have concerns about the endorsement of Keir Starmer? Oh my God, yes, they did. Look, I've got to ask you, though, while you're here, Liam, about this major potential economic news overnight with J.D. Vance in an interview with Unheard, really talking up the chances of a trade deal. He said, we're certainly working very hard with Keir Starmer's government. The president really loves the United Kingdom. He loved the Queen. He admires and loves the King. It is a very important relationship, and he's a businessman and has a number of important business relationships in Britain, but I think it's much deeper than that. So he said, thus, I think there's a good chance that, yes, we'll come to a great agreement that's in the best interests of both countries. So, Liam, what could that deal look like, and where do you put the chances at the moment?
Well, since a couple of days after Liberation Day, of course, the name given to the day when Trump announced all those tariffs, I've been predicting on my Substack and on X/Twitter that there will be a trade deal between the UK and the US quite soon. Why? Because Trump desperately needs a big win to come out of this current situation. Trump needs to show the world that if you negotiate and you get close to America and you do what America wants, then there are mutually beneficial trade deals with what remains the world's biggest economy and the world's easily most valuable consumer market to be done. Trump needs to show that it isn't just all about bluster and shock and awe and gyrating financial markets. He needs to show that actually what he's trying to do is use the threat of really high tariffs to bring about outcomes where tariffs are actually lower and there's more trade. And I genuinely believe, amidst all the shock and awe, that is what he and his team, particularly Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and the head of the Council of Economic Advisors, Steve Meehan, are trying to bring about. Starmer also, there'd be irony, of course, if Starmer was able to preside over a free trade deal between the UK and the US, because that would only be possible because we're outside the European Union. When you're in the European Union conducts your trade policy. And of course, the European Union has been trying to get a trade deal with America since it began life, and it hasn't managed to. So there'd be an irony in that for Starmer, but it would also make him look good. Let me just explain to your viewers and listeners. I'm sure they know, but a lot of people in politics don't understand this. You don't need a free trade agreement to trade, right? You trade on what we call WTO rules with other smaller tariffs. About a fifth of our trade is with the US. They are our biggest single country trading partner. Now, a lot of that trade isn't in goods, and these tariffs only apply to goods, actual physical objects. A lot of our trade with the US is in services, financial services, legal services, media services, insurance, that kind of stuff. Britain's good at exporting that. We're the second biggest service exporter in the world. We are a service superpower in this country. And it's not just the City of London. This stuff comes from all over the country, I'm proud to say. Now, Trump needs to show the rest of the world there's a trade deal. He's trying to do a trade deal with the Indians. He's trying to do a trade deal with the Vietnamese. He's trying to do a trade deal with the Brazilians. He's trying to do a trade deal with Indonesia. These are really big economies. And if he can show them, look, I've done a trade deal with the Brits. They're the fifth biggest economy in the world. They're serious people. I can do a trade deal with you too, but I just need you to drop your tariffs on me. Then it will work really well for Trump. It worked really well for Trump if he can do that. And if Starmer can hold his nerve, and with respect to Keir Starmer, since he and his front benches have stopped insulting the US president personally to the extent they were, they have actually done a pretty good job of holding the line and saying, look, we're not going to do reciprocal tariffs. We're not going to freak out here. We're going to carry on talking to the Americans and try and get some kind of deal. If there is a trade deal between the UK and the US, it would be an important economic story for the UK. There would be a bit of a boost to growth. There would be a bit of a boost to investment, but it would be a much, much, much more important story to the rest of the world, because it would demonstrate, Dan, that Donald Trump isn't just in chaos wrecking ball mode, he's actually in negotiating mode. And that would change the global political weather for Trump. And that's why I think the UK currently has more bargaining power with Trump, with the US government, to form a trade deal than it has had at any time since that Brexit vote.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.